Bartholomeus, what is your first impression on the Teatro de la República the first day when you're directing your first concert here in Mexico?
To be honest, I think I love this theater. It has a warmness. If they ask me, for example, here in Querétaro to choose between Metropolitan or Teatro de la República, I choose Teatro de la República. Why? The first reason is warmness. Segundo, it's a real theater. E terzo, you're in the center of the city and more people can come. Okay, there are 800 places, but then you do two concerts.
Right.
And cultural events is also economical, very important. Why do I say this? People are in the middle of the center, and when they are in the middle of the center, they can, before the concert or after the concert, they can have a nice restaurant or a nice drink. Right. So all the people from Querétaro are profiting from this. I also think about the other people. Music is never alone. We say in music, for example, one note never sounds alone. It's always in a harmony. So when I think in a concert, you should make in a harmony. Of course, I'm not against Theatre Metropolitan on the little hill there. I'm not against that. But it's a big theater. And I think it's good for big manifestations. But I think classical music is somehow, somewhere, intimity music. Somehow it is also an experience of intimacy by music through the soul of human beings. And music serves the brain, serves the feeling, and serves many things.
Which concert you work at in Teatro de la República?
I came here 9 years ago, actually. I did Enigma from Elgar, for example. Okay. I did a Beethoven symphony here. And this year we did one concert here too, with Mozart Overtura. It was very nice, and you feel the public very close also. As a conductor and also as a musician, you almost close to the public, and you feel the public so close with you that you have more pleasure to play, I think. In Metropolitan there is a little bit more distance. It's bigger, but I think there in the Metropolitan you need a little bit in size a bigger orchestra, I think, personally. Maybe for the future, when Querétaro Philharmonic grows, maybe we can make two series. For example, intimate concerts here in the Teatro de la República, and the big concerts in Metropolitan, for example.
Right, with great musicians too.
Yes, with great musicians. But I think also a Philharmonic, a symphony orchestra, has an identity. And in identity you have to build. And Querétaro is a city with a big history. And this identity from the city you have to use. And when you use this very well, then I think you should play in the theater here. Because this theater has an identity. Maybe the young people don't know, but I know. Probably you know it too. When I saw Western films, they were made here. There are some Western films are made in Querétaro. And you see on the background the Teatro de la República when the cowboys and the Indians were fighting in the film.
Of course, yes.
You saw this place. So Querétaro, historical city, has such much advantages. Well, let's play here. And I think when you play here, everybody's profiting. The wonderful restaurants here, the little places, everybody's profiting from that. And we say always, culture is very important for the economy. And sometimes people forget that.
That's true. Bartholomeus, explain us who is Bartholomeus and the experience like director, conductor and coach, because I see you are coaching.
Yeah.
Too.
Yes, exactly. But that came, everything in my life came automatically. I force never things. Everything is automatically in my life. Who is Bartholomeus Henri van der Velde? Well, I'm born like everybody and I grow up. And to tell you, when I was very little, a kid from 6-7 years old, I wanted to be a rock star.
Oh,
yes.
Rock star.
Yes.
What kind of rock star?
Well, my idol was actually Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper.
Maybe the young people don't know him, but if you go on YouTube, you will see him. It's very strange, but that was my style.
The rock star who bites the vampires with the teeth.
Yes, something like this, and all the $1 billion baby with the snake. But he was that time famous. I think he's still alive. And but my father said he was a lover of classical music, and he pushed me actually in the classical music. I'm 6-7 years old. He said, "My son, try first to play violin. If it doesn't work, you can become a rock star." But when I got a violin in my hands, I was very proud to have a violin. So I became a violin player first of all. But the conducting always stayed in my head. And why I say rock star, you entertain the people with music more. And for me, I don't say classical music is entertainment music, but you have to entertain the classical music that the public is happy with it. That's more important. Sometimes people in the classical music take it so serious that the people or the public are afraid to go to a classical concert. Because they think it's too serious, it's not for us. My biggest pleasure is actually to bring people to the concert hall who never came to a classical music. For example, in Europe, I took the time to talk to the people. You never went to the classical concert. Come, I explained them. And I gave them always the first 2 tickets free. And now they bought a whole series of tickets. Why? Because I opened the door for them to have more fantasy, to have a bigger dream in their life, and to listen. Wow, classical music is fantastic. Classical music is not only Mozart, Beethoven. Classical music is actually a way of playing, a way of thinking, a way how do I produce sounds. And I think these days we are losing sounds. And that's how I come actually to the coaching. I want to coach people with music. Coaching to tell them, listen, music is not music. Music is a product in a way. But what is the result of music is always sound. Sound is the result of music. And I want to make the people again sensitive with sound. We speak always about pollution, for example. So many pollution in the air. But we rarely speak about pollution of sound in the life.
Yeah.
You should be, I think, surprised how many people become deaf because of the pollution in the world. And that's the reason I'm coaching this. I'm coaching this because I want that the people are more sensitive. And through music, and especially through classical music, you can make the people sensitive. And in this coaching I do. Also, for example, in companies, I go with music. I explain how a composer writes music. I explain how classical musicians, how a conductor works with the orchestra. And then finally they discover that we do exactly the same in a business. Only our product is different. Okay. The whole system is the same. And I'm happy. I tell you honestly, when I was much younger, I didn't believe in coaching. I was, oh, coaching, that's nothing for me.
Yes.
But I met people because I did many conferences, and they, why don't you do coaching? And I started to do, and I studied it. And I think it's a future also. Because sometimes in the education for the young people are missing many things. And I think that's the reason coaching came in the world, for the missing links in the education from the young people. And I think education is till you die. You have always to educate yourself each day.
Of course, yes, it's true that. Yes, it's true that. Then yesterday you explained some places you've been, like director and conductor,
Yes.
but too like coach. Which places your choices? You feel something.
Well, that comes always automatically. Once when I go sometimes for the first time, when people always see me as a conductor, and then after a few days we speak and we have more conversations. Then I discover that I don't only conduction, but I also do coaching people. I try that the people can work on themselves. I try to educate them. Listen, you have more in yourself than only playing violin or playing an instrument. You have much more. And mostly in the world, what's the difference between a consultant and a coach? A consultant will always agree with you, what you do. But the coach, he agrees with you too, but in a different way, in the opposite way. So he wants to make the best of you. The best examples in the sport, if you have Mr. Bolt when he was running so fast, well, a consultant will say to him, your 10 seconds are fantastic. But the coach will say, man, your 10 seconds are too slow. I want 8 seconds for the 100 meter.
Of course.
So he's pushing to have a better result, pushing to have more from a human being. And that's what I do in my conducting. I try to get the best out of the ensemble, the best of the humanity. That's what I try to get out. Some people are nervous with that, I know that. Because giving yourself is not given to everybody. Because most people are a little bit nervous. Why should I give totally to the life? But life is art, and the art is life. So profit from that. And if you profit from that, I think the world opens for you all the time. And I think if you coach in that way, I think you make many people happy. But at least I try.
For moments, you like conductor and director, coach too.
Yeah.
You take some exigence of your students to be perfect and successful.
Well, I try to teach that they can live on their own. I try to teach that they can do it without me. And then later on they can say the same thing to the next generation. Because in fact, life is just following up. There's always a new generation after about 7 years. And maybe the technical support is changing. But in fact, the human being stays the same. With animals actually the same thing, I think. They always be the same, they have the same instincts. And human beings have also instincts. The only difference is we have a brain.
Right, that's true.
And that we have to develop, our brain. And if you can develop your brain with intelligence, but how do this? I developed, for example, a triangle.
Yes.
And I put in a triangle one side art, the other side inspiration, and on the bottom line, I put management. Fantastic word from Americans. Management. It's
Yes.
always big. But what happens in this triangle if you put away the inspiration? This side falls down. That means that the other side has no support. So the art falls down also. What are you doing then finally? Only management. And in the coaching world they call that monkey business. And unfortunately I think there are too many monkeys in the world.
last moment you explained and you told me the musical classical is starting to be dead. What do you mean that?
Did I say that?
Yes.
Maybe I was drunken. No, we have to be careful that classical music is not dying. Why? Because with all the technology we have these days, it's not easy. For example, we come again to the subject speed, tempo. If you see the young people these days, they need everything very quick. You have Google, you have YouTube, you push, enter, play, and when you have enough, you push, stop, or delete. So this is a tempo which goes very fast. To give an example, for example, when I was studying music, I had to study solfège, I had to study harmony, contrapunct, etc. These days, a young guy with the computer can make a composition without studying this all, because the computer does it for you. So what happened? The difference of tempo. I had to write everything, I had to think about everything. Today I play on a piano, which is connected with a computer. We call that a system Sibelius in Europa. And you play a melody, and you say, well, I want a samba. You go to the computer, you put samba, and the computer automatically put the melody in a samba mood. So that means what? That everything goes faster. But this speed is actually really good. We have to be careful that the machines, I call that, the IT machines, don't depass the humanity. Finally, the machine will take advantage of everything, but not a human being. Knowing that the machine is made by human beings, but on the end, they take it over from you. And who are the losers then? Is the human being. And I think that is what's happening a little bit now. I eat each 2 months with a wonderful friend who's 90 years old. Each 2 months we go to a nice restaurant and we speak about life. This man writes books. He knows everything from here. If you speak about a cultural subject, the young people, what do? They take their phone, they push Google, they say to Google, I want to know this. Google search in 10 seconds, poof, and have everything. Do you really think you remember that what you pushed in your computer or your mobile phone? No, you don't remember anything. You read. You even don't read, you watch. For example, in my coaching, I don't do with a program on the screen. I write everything on a big paper. And when I write, the people read with you. But if I show it on a screen, like a PowerPoint, they watch it. They don't read it. And that's a little bit the same what's happening, I think, in classical music. We have to be careful. Because we have so many choices. I still remember, I'm not going to say names, but I was doing a rehearsal with a youth orchestra. And one of the members, I'm not going to say the nationality neither, because it's not nice, she played a mistake.
Okay.
And each time she played the same mistake. When I do a mistake, I study the passage where I do the mistake. You know what the person did in front of me after I stopped the rehearsal? I was so shocked about it. She took her phone, she put YouTube on, and she listened to another recording of that piece, how it should sound. It's the same, that is not studying, this is watching. This is watching with the ear. If she would have studied that measure where she was wrong, really, authentically, with her brain, she would never forget this. But taking your phone and listening to YouTube, I was a little bit shocked. That's not how you study, actually. That's how you imitate. And we have to be careful with imitating. Of course, it's always better to make a good imitation than a bad design, I say, or a bad interpretation. But human beings have to develop, and developing is very good. But we should not let decide the machines, because we make the machines, we make the music. And if the classical music dies, I don't think it will soon die. The only thing is that there will be maybe less interest. And that's not the fault of the public, that's not the fault, but that's the fault of the education. When I was young, I had music in my studies. When I was 6-7 years old in school, they teach us music on a low level, but they teach us music. These days they don't teach music anymore in the normal schools. Music became like something apart. music became something, it's only for specialists. No, music is for everybody. And some people make their profession from that, which is normal. And that are maybe the specialists. But music is for everybody. And everybody has the right to sing. Everybody has the right to enjoy music. If I speak professionally, well, music has a system, you know it all from do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. It's very old. It had also an evolution. The beginning of the music were the primitive sounds, then came Gregorian music, and all this development of the technique of the music went very high. And I agree, these days to be a composer is not so easy because the hot water is found out already a long time. So to refine the hot water is very difficult. You can use it differently, yes, but to use it differently becomes also more difficult because the human being became more and more and more intelligent. Human beings they study, universities, we develop, but we have to be careful with that. I think to be careful that our developing process doesn't go too fast. I'm always dreaming that some composer wakes up and invent a new do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. In another way, in another color, in another whatever. And there maybe we can help. But making beautiful sound. Not making noise, but making beautiful sound. This is the future for me.
One of the things I try to ask, if you have form to explain your system, an example of you're invited about the triangle of the...
Yes?
So how you...
Produce, yeah.
Explain.
Well, the triangle, it took me a long time. Of course, I spoke about fantasy, interpretation, intelligence. And many people, they only use the word fantasy. But what is fantasy finally? Fantasy is not like, let me say, oh, I have an idea, I want to do this. This is not for me fantasy. This is something more wild. Fantasy is what? I think to have good fantasy, you need intelligence. It's also always together. It never is apart. You have to make, as much as possible, you have to read, you have to study, you have to informate yourself. To be fantasy, I use always sometimes the word intuition. What is intuition? And if you ask it to people, intuition is what I feel. Yes, but how do you feel? And I'm going to give an example with religions. In the time of the religion, in the very early time, there were books about religion. And the monks, they read books daily, from the beginning till the end, and from the end till the beginning, and upside down, and each letter they studied. What was the history of God? Or what was the history of Allah, of the Buddhist, or whatever religion it is? I'm not criticizing the religion. But my question is now, they studied all these books, but they never saw the principal actor of the books. I say actor, excuse me for the expression, but it is God or Allah. They never saw this person, never. Who saw the person? We imagine that person. We had the intuition that that person exists. And this intuition comes from long study. So now I put just this procedure in the music world or in something else. If you study a lot, your fantasy goes to another level. And that level we need to reach. So you have to educate the people. Educate well that their fantasy becomes logical and adorable. And that all people can touch that. And I think this is a philosophy of life also. Intuition, fantasy, you have to study. Just don't make your life only on fantasy and only on study. Be curious. Be curious to research. Always curiosity. For example, Einstein was living in Switzerland. I went to the exhibition of him. He was living there and he went always by bike to his office. But the street where he biked went downhill. And when you go downhill with a bike, you go faster and faster and faster. Again, speed. You see, tempo is very important in life, the right speed. But Einstein asked himself, why, when I go faster with my bike, the house is falling down and the street becomes more narrow on the end? Why is that? And he started to study, he started to develop a theory of that. But that's how I have to be. And that's also how musicians or soloists, conductors, musicians study their score. Why he wrote this there, why it's there that, why this little difference there. Don't just play from the beginning till the end. We can go 100 years for that, but nobody is happy. But a little difference in life, and that you feel in the music. And my coaching comes from the music, because in the music there is all the true is classical music. In German we say Leitmotiv. My leitmotiv from my life is the music. All my inspiration comes from the music. I read books a lot about living persons, the living art I read a lot. And I think if you do that, well, then it's a pleasure to live.
Totally true. This is the last question. Famous, the popular travel. How many people you get really examples of about well, examples of the life, example of the music. I mean, how many these students, musicians, they follow you, or they still follow you?
Well, you speak popular and famous. I don't like so much these words, to be honest. And my philosophy to life is, and that's how I try to educate my kids and the people with who I have to work, is there are two words, which is freedom and respect. But I say it in the wrong order. I start always with respect and then freedom. And what is freedom and what is respect? If you have both, then you can go very far. And that is actually my philosophy. I don't care to be famous and I don't care to be popular. If you have respect and you give freedom to the people in a respectable way, and you smile always, I try also in my choice in the vocabulary to avoid negative words. So if I write a text or I do a conference, I try always to avoid a word who is negative. Try always in a text you write, or in a letter you write, or in a conference you write, to put positive words. Because positive and a smile, you go very far. Complaining all the time about everything, you don't go far. And finally, the people don't like you. The people don't like your problems. The people, they like your respect and your freedom. That's what they like. And if you do it with a smile, they will think sooner or later. And that's a little bit my philosophy. I have to agree, when you're young, you don't think like that. Which means actually, experience is also very important in life. When you're young, of course, you have many dreams, you think you're going to change the world. I was thinking that too, I'm going to change the world. And very quick as possible. Because when we grow up, we don't have this real feeling of time, of tempo. So by age, you learn many things. Sometimes people say, oh, I want to be again 20 years old. Me not. I think life is wonderful. And each year, each 7 years or 10 or whatever, brings you something else. Imagine what I know today, and I used that when I was 10 years old. I think I was in a psychiatric clinic. Because it's not possible to know what I know now, to use that when I'm 10 years old. It's not possible. Of course there are more genius in the people, but that's just the richness of our society. Genius, more and more, bigger, less, whatever it is. But that's make richness. The freedom and the respect cannot exist with all genius people. It is impossible. Everybody has a place in the world. And that's also a subject for a conductor. An orchestra with only soloists doesn't work. You need from everybody a little bit. It's like a kitchen. You put a little bit salt, a little bit pepper, a little bit this, from everything. And from that you make a nice color. And in my case, it's a nice sound. And people who want to follow that, they are welcome. People who don't want to follow that, that's their choice. There I use the word freedom. But I respect them also. You cannot love everybody, it's impossible. Because if everybody loves the same thing, then we have a big problem. Which we don't need.
So
Very philosophical, eh?
No, very good.
Yeah, oh la la.